I'm very lucky that people ask me to come and speak at events like this. I'm really lucky that people ask me to speak at all, mainly because I'm an only child. I have a massive ego on me, and I like sharing my opinion with people, so this is really grateful. But the main reason it's so wonderful is you get to hear incredibly inspiring, fascinating, wonderful stories from all over the place. And I think, for me, life is really about stories, and it's really about sharing communication. And one of the things that people often like me to do is they say to me, Ben, you seem to know about technology, you seem to know a little bit about creativity. Tell us the future. And so when I kind of received this Think Beyond brief from the TEDx, I thought, oh, right, yes, it's another opportunity to forecast the future. And I'm going to help you do that. I'm going to help you predict the future. And I want to start with a very, very simple story. About 15,000 years ago, somewhere, doesn't really matter where, a bunch of people were sitting around a fire, and someone looked up at the sky, and they said, what's that? And they all probably looked around at each other, and they probably just made stuff up. They probably just said, it's a dead kangaroo. It's the vagina of the great mother that gave birth to us. It's the sand. It's the sea. We didn't know anything. But what we did know is that we liked to talk about things. And we liked to share stories. And we liked to sit around something and all share a moment. And these moments have really defined, actually, how technology has progressed. From the very, very first instance, we had a thing that we looked at. And in this instance, it was fire, something to gather around, something to kind of bring us together. And we've always needed that. We also needed something that we could look up at, something that we could aspire to, something that we couldn't understand. And we've still always needed that. And so when people say to me, what do you think the future's going to be? I always think it's going to be something that brings people together and something that is bigger than ourselves. And they kind of look at me, and they look at the day rate I charge them for this sort of advice, and they say, is that it? And I say, yeah, that's it. They say, something together and something bigger. I say, yeah, that's it, thanks. And I often walk out of these kind of grand corporate buildings, chuckling slightly to myself, counting my money. And I often wonder whether or not they've actually kind of understood what it is I'm trying to say. And, I get an email, Ben, loved you coming in. That was just great meeting, thanks. You couldn't just explore a little bit more your idea? I said, yeah, something that comes together, something bigger than us. That's it. Cool, thanks. Just to let you know, I have to invoice twice because it's the same. They always look at me like I'm taking the piss. And I started to realize that maybe I wasn't explaining this properly. Maybe I was kind of getting this wrong. Maybe I didn't know what I was doing. So I started to think about it. I started to think, what am I actually trying to say there? And I thought, I've got it. We started with one. We started with the fire. And a few years later, we invented another one. And then we invented the printing press. And we started making books and pamphlets and talking. And that was like a bigger sort of campfire, right? It was like a bigger reason to talk. And it was bigger than us. And something that we came together. And then we invented the radio. And it was this thing that we could all gather around. It was bigger than us. There's another thing. The TV. In the middle, something to bring us together, bigger than us. And I thought to myself, there's a problem, isn't there? And the problem is that the thing that has celebrated humanity best of all is probably, and I would say, the internet. The internet is an equalization device. The internet is the ability for everyone to have the same power as everybody else. And I started thinking to myself, something that brings us together, something that is bigger than us. And so I went back into Unilever, and they said, look, Ben, we really are going to have to explain this a bit better to us. I said, okay, fine. I said, what do you know about information theory? And he said, we don't know anything about information theory. I said, great, good. One to many, many to many, bye. And I left. And they said, no, you can't just leave again. You have to explain these things. I said, okay, fine. The printing press was one to many. It was one person, one idea, one concept, one author, one printer. Sadly, one particular class of people. One group of people talking to themselves, but from a single point. A single point. And it went to many people. And it was equal. We all took the thing, we looked at the thing, we read the book, and we said, that person, that thing that is bigger than us, lovely pyramid, they must be clever. Must be smart people. These abbots and these bishops and these people with their religion and their writing. They must be right. They must be clever, these people. They're probably very smart. And we spent like that for a long time. And then eventually we realized that maybe one person or a few people or a religion was a bad idea. We thought that's got too much of a pyramid of anything, too many. So we solved the problem by inventing effectively throwaway books, newspapers, and invented effectively media. And again, many to one, but it's still a single point, still is one point. It doesn't matter now whether it's religion or it's an editor, but all of us gathering together, look at the number of metros and evening standards on the tube, all of us sucking in this incredible opinion and feelings and thoughts and stories and frightening tales of people getting stabbed and burnings and murders and city boys with too much money, and all sat there on our little box in a tube, shuffling along, worshipping the big, great idea of capitalism, of commerce, of approach, of business. We realised that maybe that wasn't enough. We couldn't just have all these kind of smart editors reading and writing things, celebrating stuff. We needed something else. There needed to be something else. And also, all this turning pages and reading, it's very tiring, isn't it? God, who's got the time to read these days? So we turned it over and we said, look, here's the radio. And the radio was super useful. The radio really did start to shrink the world. That was amazing. You could go to Africa, still hear the world service. You could go to Germany, still hear the world service. And during the Second World War, the radio is an integral part of the Nazis' propaganda campaign. In fact, Goebbels himself says that we could not have won the Second World War if it wasn't for the radio. And the radio was this great invention. You could have people talking, you could have different accents, you could have music, you could have all sorts of fun. You'd all gather together, turn the radio on again. But still, it's many to one, it's one to many. It's those in the BBC somewhere telling us what we should listen to. And then we've got the TV, and the TV, it's like radio, isn't it? But it's moving pictures, less reading, that's good, less reading, more pictures, lots of beautiful, exciting images, pictures of foreign places, birds, attractive people, David Attenborough. It's great. It's lots of fascinating, wonderful things. And we all gathered around it, and we all sit there 8 hours, quite frequently a day, some of us at least 4 hours a day in our spare time, glued to the machine as it broadcasts to us. And we just sit there, taking it one to many, as always, you see. We like things that we can gather around, and we like things that are bigger than us. What we are really fucking shit at is working out what thing we should be gathering about and what thing we should be thinking is bigger than us. Because most of the time, it's bullshit. So the internet, it arrived and it appeared and it emerged, and then Steve Jobs came down from heaven and he gave us this, and that was great. And we all thanked him very much for that. And he's gone away, but he'll be back. And it's true. And he came and he changed the world with this idea that, I used to be a geek. I'm a big geek. I'm not a geek by choice, by the way. I'm a failed musician. Turned out I wasn't very good at that. Failed poet. Turned out I wasn't very good at that. Failed artist. Wasn't very good at that. And by this point, I'd sort of, developed a fairly healthy artistic marijuana habit, which was productive to say the least. Frequently, I could get out of bed and quite often make a cup of tea before 5 o'clock. So that was good. And I learned that I needed to make money to pay for my weed habit and pretending to be an artist, and I plugged in computers. And at the time, the internet was just this kind of emerging thing. People weren't really using it. It was probably about 10,000 websites, very, very small. You kind of got this impression that it was going to be big. You kind of got this feeling. You were like, it's probably going to go all right. But it really wasn't still Steve Jobs came down from heaven and introduced this to us, that people, my parents, other people who couldn't program, other people who weren't geeks, really kind of went, oh my God, what is this? I can send a selfie of myself to my 10 friends who could be anywhere. Isn't that amazing? And it is. It's incredible. We can send selfies and dick pics all across the world instantaneously in real time. 80% of the world has 3G, so you never have to worry about harassing a woman online if you don't want to. And that's really, truly marvellous. But the truly great thing about the internet is the fact that I and you are equal. I can put things on the internet, and the BBC can put things on the internet, and the Guardian can put things on the internet. And I can put it on the internet, and I can be better, funnier, cleverer, more interesting, more artistic, more diverse, more celebratory, more focused on trying to change the world than the BBC, because the BBC has an agenda. The Guardian has an agenda. But I don't have an agenda, apart from I like the things I like, and I like the people I like, and I kind of want to like these things with you. You see, When you have many to many, going back to information theory, you increase the number of opportunities available to everybody. No longer does one have to fight to the top of the pyramid in order to make their opinion known. Instead, I can just share my opinion, and you can take it or leave it. I don't know if anyone's ever discovered Twitter, but Twitter is a fantastically beautiful invention. It's a really great place to talk about complicated, nuanced ideas without anybody getting upset in any way. It's a really great place for really sort of detailed discussions, especially with people with opposing views. It always goes well, and you learn a lot, and you don't hate anyone in the process. But actually that fight, that discussion, and that difference, that annoyance we feel with each other, is the most beautiful part of society. It's the most beautiful bit of us. It's the most beautiful bit of being human, is to disagree with people and to not get along with them and to not think the same things and to not be the same people and to not do the same things. This is truly magnificent, truly a wonderful thing to do, is to really understand that you're not me and I'm not you, and thus I don't need to read the same paper as you for us to get along at a dinner party. I don't need to go for the same school. I don't need to have the same background. I don't need to have the same parents. I don't need to have the same cultural reference points. You know why? Because my world is really limited. In 34 years in my life, I've learnt a bit. I've not learnt anything close to what I want to learn. I've not met half of the people I wish I could meet. I don't think I've discovered the true love of my life yet. I still don't think I've worked out what I'm doing for myself. And I know for a fact that most of you are thinking the same. Most of us don't know what we're doing. Most of us don't know where we're going. Most of us don't know what we want to be. And weirdly, the internet is the only place in the world that I've ever discovered tells me that's okay. It says, that's all right. Here's how to get better. Here's how to build something. Here's that app you were dreaming of. Here's how to build it. Would you like to learn woodworking? Go on the internet. Do you want to know how to fix your car? Go on the internet. Want to know how to grow marijuana in your back garden without getting discovered by the police? Don't do it, but go on the internet. You can learn anything. You won't find the advice you find on the internet in the newspaper because it doesn't sell papers. And if it doesn't sell papers, it doesn't sell advertising. And if they can't sell the papers, then they just give away the papers for free on the underground, clogging our minds up so they can sell advertising. You see, people want to have control of our campfire, and they want to tell us what the sky is. But I think truly, deeply, honestly, in ourselves, the only thing I've ever learnt is our campfire is ours, and the sky is unknown. And I don't want to be told what I'm gathering around. I don't want to be told what to believe. I want to be in a situation where I can discover it, and I can learn it, and I can understand things in a different way. Because I know that I don't know. That's all I know. And my father was a very bright man. He's a professor, very, very smart chap. And he took me aside one day, much like some of the speakers we've heard today, go to school, stay in school, get a good job, you'll be fine. Didn't really work. My weed habit affected my grades quite dramatically. And he said to me, "You're a bright lad, Ben, but you're lazy." I said, "That's true." Still pretty lazy. And he said, "The smartest thing you can ever do," and here's a trick for you. The smartest thing you can ever do, Ben, is say, "I don't know." And I thought that was the stupidest advice I'd ever heard. I was like, my dad's a professor. He did his PhD in his spare time, came from a working class background up in the north of England. He slogged his arse off to give me a life that he wanted, that he never had. He worked his arse off to get the accreditations that people told him he couldn't have. He worked his arse off to become something better than he wanted to be. He wanted to become this great thing. And I thought, this is the stupidest advice I've ever heard. What? I don't know. And I was thinking, you spent a life telling people things. You spent a life telling people what you know. And it took me ages to realise that that's the trick. The trick to learning things is to start from the premise of I don't know. The trick to working out whether you like people is to start from I don't know. The trick to being honest is to say I don't know. The trick when we talk to our partners, our friends, is to say I don't know. It is never the solution to believe in anything that is arranged in a pyramid that comes from beyond yourself, that you have not checked in your heart, that you have not identified. And if, when life comes to you and people say, what should we believe? The answer is, I don't know, because that's where we're going to start from. That's where we're going to start from in the future. We're going to start not with inherited ideas of race, of society, of culture, of technology, of who's in charge and who's not in charge. We're going to start from an idea of, we don't know. We've got it wrong. We need to re-engineer. We need to reorganize. And when it comes to reorganization and re-engineering, we're going to start from a many-to-many existence. We're going to start taking down these towers, these pyramids, these ideas that people are better than other people, that someone knows something more than somebody else, that somebody is more right than somebody else. We're not going to have that. We're just going to have a little natter, have a cup of tea, we're going to sit around our campfire again, and we're going to speculate about what the sky is. Because in 100 years, we're going to have to get off this rock, and we're going to have to go to Mars, and we're going to have to go, we can laugh, but it's true, we are after going to do that. We've managed to ruin the Earth enough. We're going to go to Mars, and we're going to have to rebuild. And I, for one, don't want us to build the world we built before. I'd like us to build a better, new, exciting world. And that's the only thing I know.